Peter Thiel opens 0 to 1 with the bold but simple idea that the greatest progress humanity makes happens when people create something truly new, not when they copy what already exists. He draws a dividing line between going from 1 to N, which is adding more of what we already understand, more apps, more businesses, more versions of the same idea, and going from 0 to 1, which is the act of inventing something original. That shift from 0 to 1 is the essence of vertical progress, and it comes only from individuals or teams who dare to think differently from the world around them. The greatest leaps in technology, society, and human advancement happen when someone believes that the future is not predetermined, but built, one new idea at a time. If this is your first time, subscribe so you don't miss out. Let's continue. This understanding transforms the way innovators see the world. Instead of assuming that everything important has already been discovered, Thiel argues that the world still holds countless secrets, hidden opportunities no one has noticed because most people look at problems through the same lens. He emphasizes that the real breakthrough entrepreneurs are not those who compete in crowded markets trying to outdo others by tiny margins, but those who escape competition entirely by creating something unique. Every iconic company of the modern era, whether Google, Amazon, Tesla, or SpaceX, emerged by offering something no one else had, and in doing so, each carved out its own space where competition became almost irrelevant. The mindset shift begins with questioning assumptions that others take for granted. Thiel explains that people who build the future ask unusual questions, the type that unlock truths hidden beneath the surface of common thinking. For example, while many believe the search engine market was already saturated in the early 2000s, Yahoo, AltaVista, Ask Jeeves, Google's founders saw not what existed, but what was missing: search results that were precise, scalable, and organized through the logic of page ranking. This single insight allowed Google to leap ahead not by copying competitors, but by making competitors irrelevant. Thiel reinforces that such breakthroughs require contrarian thinking, not simply disagreeing with the majority, but seeing what the majority does not see. It is the ability to hold a truth that is both unpopular and correct. The question he famously poses, "What important truth do very few people agree with you on?" is not a rhetorical one. It is the doorway to discovering what no one else is working on, but everyone else will later recognize as genius. This kind of thinking is rare because people are conditioned through school, work, and culture to avoid being wrong, to avoid standing out, and to avoid appearing foolish. But every innovation that reshapes the world begins in the space where someone dared to think independently. Understanding how progress happens leads naturally to understanding how the future is shaped. Thiel argues that there are two ways people imagine the future, as definite or indefinite. In a definite future, people believe the future can be planned, shaped, and designed intentionally. In an indefinite future, people assume things will naturally work out as long as they stay flexible. Thiel argues strongly that the greatest innovators operate with a definite view of the future. They plan boldly, chart clear directions, and build towards specific visions. This is why Elon Musk did not merely hope electric vehicles would improve one day. He built Tesla with a clear blueprint for making them dominant. It is why in the United States, the Apollo moon mission succeeded. It had a clear goal, a definite timeline, and decisive action from engineers who believed the future was theirs to design. In contrast, countless wait-and-see cultures or industries stagnate because indefinite thinking produces incremental actions rather than transformative ones. This mindset of definite optimism creates a psychological foundation for innovation. The belief that problems have solutions, that obstacles hide opportunities, and that the world can be improved through precise, deliberate creation. Thiel's perspective makes it clear that the world advances not through luck, but through clarity of intention combined with relentless execution. People who believe the future is controllable act differently. They take bigger risks, pursue original ideas, and refuse to settle for mediocrity. This becomes a way of seeing the world not as a place that happens to you, but as a landscape you can reshape. Thiel extends this idea of deliberate creation into the realm of startups, where going from 0 to 1 is most visible. A startup, in his view, is not simply a small business, but a group of people united by a mission to create something new. It is concentrated energy, intelligence, and vision focused on solving a problem in a way no one else has attempted. Such teams have the power to shift entire industries because they operate outside the constraints of established thinking. Thiel uses the example of PayPal, where he and his co-founders sought not to improve banking incrementally, but to reimagine how money could move digitally. Their goal was not to compete with existing banks, but to create a new system altogether. This mindset allowed PayPal to innovate far more rapidly than traditional institutions burdened by bureaucracy. A startup's power comes from its ability to focus deeply on a specific problem that others overlook. When well executed, this focus generates innovation with magnified impact. Consider how Airbnb began with the simple idea of enabling people to rent out spare rooms, something most considered unthinkable or irrational. Yet by focusing on a hidden need, affordable, flexible lodging, and applying original thinking to solve it, Airbnb transformed the global hospitality market. This illustrates Thiel's argument that breakthroughs rarely begin with grand visions. They begin with narrow insights others dismiss as impractical. Thiel emphasizes that extraordinary innovation is never random. It requires a structured way of thinking, a combination of vision and discipline, a blend of imagination and knowledge. True creativity, he insists, is not chaos. It is clarity that sees beyond noise. This is why founders must think both independently and precisely. They study the world deeply, question it boldly, and imagine new ways of solving problems without the constraints of conventional logic. Such individuals do not aim to be slightly better. They aim to be unmistakably different. He also underscores the relationship between secrets and innovation. Secrets are truths hidden from most people not because they are guarded, but because they are overlooked. Thiel believes the world is still full of secrets waiting to be discovered, scientific secrets, technological secrets, business secrets, and even human behavioral secrets. New companies, he argues, are built on secrets. If everyone knew how to solve a problem, competition would be fierce and progress minimal. But when a small group discovers a truth no one else has noticed, they hold the key to creating something transformative. This principle explains why biotech companies in America invest heavily in research, knowing that discovering a single biological insight can redefine entire industries. It also explains why entrepreneurs in Africa, Southeast Asia, and South America innovate under constraints, developing creative solutions to local problems that outsiders never considered. Thiel moves deeper into the psychology of innovation by explaining that discovery is not merely intellectual, it is also emotional. It requires courage to question norms, resilience to face skepticism, and conviction strong enough to withstand doubt. Society tends to reward conformity, which makes independent thought rare. Yet the innovators who build the future, whether in technology, social entrepreneurship, medicine, or energy, share the trait of intentional nonconformity. They do not rebel for rebellion's sake. They challenge ideas because they see better alternatives. This blend of courage and clarity is what allows them to move from 0 to 1, creating something that did not exist before. This brings Thiel to a subtle yet profound point. Most people underestimate how much agency they have in shaping the future. They believe the world is locked into paths determined by governments, corporations, or market forces. But Thiel argues that progress often begins with a few individuals who refuse that assumption. They believe in their ability to influence outcomes, to solve problems that appear unsolvable, and to pioneer roads no one else has walked. This mindset explains why individuals like Steve Jobs, who refused to accept the limitations of existing technology, created products that redefined not just industries, but everyday life. It also explains why visionary thinkers in countries like Nigeria, India, and Brazil are pioneering innovations in fintech, renewable energy, and digital commerce. They see gaps others accept as normal, and they act on them. Thiel closes this foundational idea by asserting that going from 0 to 1 is not simply about building companies. It is about building the future. Every meaningful innovation, every leap forward in medicine, communication, transportation, space exploration, education, and technology comes from people who dared to believe that what does not yet exist can still be created. And the story of progress is simply the story of individuals who embraced this truth. As Thiel moves deeper into the philosophy of creating from nothing, he turns toward a concept that often unsettles people because it challenges their assumptions about business, fairness, and competition. He argues that competition is overrated, and in many cases, it is actually destructive. Most people are taught that competition is healthy, that it drives progress, lowers prices, and rewards the best performers. But Thiel's view is far more nuanced. While competition can improve existing ideas, it rarely produces breakthroughs. Competing forces companies to focus on outperforming one another instead of imagining entirely new solutions. They fight over slices of an existing market instead of expanding into new territory. To illustrate this, Thiel contrasts two types of companies: those trapped in competition and those that escape it. Businesses in crowded markets spend everything they have, money, time, creativity, just trying to survive. They lower prices, intensify marketing, and work harder without necessarily becoming more innovative. Restaurants, local shops, and many service businesses fall into this category. They may provide value, but they are locked into an endless struggle for customers who have countless alternatives. Nothing about this environment fosters innovation. On the other hand, companies that create something unique, something no one else offers, escape competition entirely. Thiel calls these companies creative monopolies, not in the abusive sense of monopolies that exploit customers, but in the sense of businesses that deliver such unique value that they stand alone. Google in search, SpaceX in private space exploration, Tesla in scaled electric vehicle innovation. These companies dominate not because they silence competitors, but because they are so far ahead that no competitor can offer the same thing. Thiel argues that society misunderstands monopolies. We tend to associate them with greed or corruption, but most truly innovative monopolies exist because they create products so exceptional that no one wants alternatives. When Amazon launched its cloud computing service, AWS, it didn't corner the market through force. It did so by offering something the world had never seen: massive, instantly scalable server infrastructure that could power startups, apps, and enterprises. It moved from 0 to 1 not by copying existing models, but by creating something foundational and original. Even today, AWS remains one of the largest cloud providers globally because it stays ahead through continuous innovation. What makes this idea powerful is that it connects directly to Thiel's broader philosophy. Creating something new is more valuable than competing over something old. People who aim to win competition often mimic each other, but people who seek to escape competition must imagine what does not exist. This requires a level of original vision and bravery that sets innovators apart. From here, Thiel transitions into a deeper understanding of what makes a startup truly capable of becoming a monopoly. It begins with building a product so good that it creates its own category. Thiel calls this a 10x improvement. If a new company's product is not at least 10 times better than every alternative, consumers have little reason to switch. Incremental improvements rarely create dominance. Breakthroughs do. This principle can be seen across the world. When M-Pesa launched in Kenya, it didn't just offer a slightly better banking alternative. It offered a 10x easier, accessible, mobile-based financial system in a place where traditional banks were out of reach for millions. This leap allowed the service to dominate mobile payments in East Africa. In the US, companies like Netflix overtook competitors not by offering slightly better DVD rentals, but by transforming the entire model of home entertainment, first with DVDs by mail and later with streaming. Thiel reinforces that such breakthroughs are not accidental. They require an intentional search for unique insights. Innovators must ask, what do people desperately need that no one else understands? What solution could exist, but doesn't yet? These are the questions that reveal monopolistic opportunities. To answer those questions effectively, founders must think contrarian, a term Thiel uses not to describe rebellion for its own sake, but the disciplined ability to see value where others do not. In practical terms, contrarian thinking means believing something important that most people consider unimportant or even impossible. This mindset is rare because it requires comfort with uncertainty, skepticism, and isolation. The greatest innovators often work on ideas that sound unreasonable at first. When Elon Musk started SpaceX, many thought private space companies were unrealistic. When Sarah Blakely created Spanx, people underestimated the potential of shapewear. When Chinese electric vehicle companies like BYD began scaling production, many doubted they would ever compete globally. But in each case, founders saw value in a space others ignored. Contrarian thinking becomes even more powerful when paired with a clear vision of the future. Thiel writes that founders must not only see what others overlook, they must also see what those insights can become. It is not enough to notice a gap. Innovators must envision how to build a bridge over it. This type of foresight forms the foundation of market-defining companies. When Shopify began, few believed small businesses would ever compete meaningfully online. Yet by envisioning a platform where every entrepreneur could build a professional storefront with ease, Shopify created a new market that propelled countless small businesses into global visibility. Thiel deepens his message by explaining that monopolies are built through durable advantages, the structural foundations that allow a company to remain dominant for long periods of time. These advantages do not rely on short-term tactics, but on characteristics woven deeply into a product or business model. He identifies several key forms of durable advantage, though he embeds them in the narrative rather than simply listing them. One such advantage is proprietary technology, solutions that no one else can easily replicate. Google's search algorithm, for example, is not just a brand strength. It is an immensely complex technological system that cannot simply be copied. Another durable advantage emerges from network effects, where a product becomes more valuable as more people use it. Social media platforms like Facebook or WhatsApp demonstrate this principle clearly. Once millions of people adopt a platform, switching becomes inconvenient, and the platform's value grows exponentially. This phenomenon also appears globally. WeChat in China dominates not through simple features, but because it has become intertwined with daily life in ways that alternative apps cannot replicate. Thiel also emphasizes economies of scale, where growing larger makes a company more efficient and more powerful. Amazon is a classic example. Its operations become cheaper and more efficient the bigger it grows, allowing it to offer lower prices and faster delivery, reinforcing its dominance. These advantages cannot be built accidentally. They are the product of thoughtful design, long-term vision, and rigorous execution. This reinforces Thiel's belief that innovators must approach the future with definiteness. They cannot rely on luck or simply respond to circumstances. Instead, they must intentionally create structures that ensure their companies can thrive for decades, not months. From here, Thiel discusses one of the most misunderstood but essential components of building a breakthrough company: starting small. While many founders dream of massive scale from day one, Thiel argues that truly innovative companies begin by dominating a small niche. This allows them to build a loyal customer base, refine their product, and perfect their value proposition without being overwhelmed or crushed by larger competitors. Amazon began with a narrow focus, selling only books online. In India, Zomato began simply by listing restaurant menus before expanding into food delivery. In the United States, Facebook began exclusively as a college network for Harvard students before expanding outward. These companies succeeded not by trying to conquer the world immediately, but by becoming undeniably strong in one small corner of it first. This approach reveals a deeper principle. Big success is built on small, achievable victories. By focusing on a narrow market where they can quickly become the best, startups build momentum. The confidence and capability gained in these early stages become the foundation for tackling bigger challenges later. Thiel then moves into the emotional dimension of monopolies. Founders must accept that striving to build something unique will almost always invite skepticism. Society tends to idolize successful innovators only after they succeed, but during the creation period, they face doubt, criticism, and misunderstanding. This means that anyone pursuing a 0-to-1 breakthrough must cultivate both courage and patience. The journey is rarely smooth, and success often requires enduring years of obscurity or disbelief before the world finally recognizes the value of the innovation. This emotional resilience mirrors stories across the world. In Nigeria, the founders of Flutterwave were dismissed early on for imagining a world-class African fintech infrastructure. In the US, Reed Hastings faced skepticism when he proposed streaming as the future of entertainment. In India, Baiju Ravindran was doubted for believing digital education could scale nationwide. Yet each persisted, guided by a clear vision of what could be, not by the doubts of those who could not yet see it. Thiel's overarching point becomes clear. The greatest companies, the greatest innovations, and the greatest contributions to humanity come from people who learn to see differently, act intentionally, and build boldly. Competitors fight over the scraps of existing markets. Innovators create new worlds. And the path from 0 to 1 is open only to those who dare to walk where no one else has gone. As the exploration continues, the path of innovation curves naturally toward understanding the role of uncertainty in shaping breakthrough ideas. Thiel emphasizes that the world rewards those who embrace uncertainty not as a threat, but as fertile ground for creation. Many people live with the illusion that the future is predetermined or governed by forces outside their control, yet the leaders who build extraordinary companies recognize that uncertainty is the canvas upon which originality is painted. When nothing is guaranteed, anything is possible. This perspective is mirrored in the founders who dared to launch bold ventures during global crises. Airbnb emerged from the 2008 financial collapse, when travel confidence was at an all-time low, and WhatsApp grew during a period of economic instability as people sought cheaper communication alternatives. The willingness to act in times of ambiguity becomes a competitive advantage because most competitors freeze, hesitate, or retreat when the environment becomes unpredictable. This attitude toward uncertainty reveals another crucial insight. Courage is a skill, not a personality trait. It is built through repeated exposure to situations where the stakes feel high and the outcomes unknown. Entrepreneurs develop courage the same way athletes build physical strength, through practice, repetition, and small acts of controlled risk-taking that expand their comfort zone. Thiel notes that people often overestimate the risk of trying something new while underestimating the risk of remaining stagnant. Kodak feared cannibalizing its film business and therefore resisted digital photography, choosing comfort over courage, a choice that ultimately erased the company. Meanwhile, Netflix continuously reinvented itself from DVD by mail to streaming to original content creation, demonstrating that courageous change is often less risky than complacency. When individuals and organizations learn to treat uncertainty as a strategic asset, they gain the freedom to explore possibilities others avoid. This ability to act boldly under uncertainty connects directly to the discipline of contrarian thinking, which Thiel defines not as seeking disagreement for its own sake, but as seeking truth that others have overlooked. The most valuable businesses are built around secrets, insights that are true but not yet widely recognized. These secrets can be technological, like realizing that autonomous drones could transform delivery systems long before regulators caught up, or behavioral, like observing that young people preferred ephemeral communication, which led to Snapchat's explosive growth. They can also be cultural, as seen in Marvel's cinematic strategy of building interconnected story universes long before it became an industry standard. The world is full of unclaimed opportunities because most people do not look closely enough to see what is right in front of them. Those who train themselves to observe more deeply, question more boldly, and reason more independently uncover doors that others walk past without noticing. Once individuals learn to identify these hidden truths, the next step is cultivating the discipline to transform insights into systems that scale. Many promising ideas fail not because they are flawed, but because their creators do not build the infrastructure required to carry them forward. Thiel explains that every great innovation must eventually evolve into an organized, repeatable, and teachable system. Otherwise, it remains a one-off achievement. Starbucks succeeded not because coffee was new, but because Howard Schultz built a replicable experience that delivered consistent quality in thousands of locations worldwide. McDonald's transformed the simple act of serving food into a global operation by systematizing every process down to the exact fry temperature and burger assembly order. Similarly, modern tech companies scale by embedding processes into code, allowing software to replicate decisions instantaneously across millions of users. When an idea becomes a system, its impact becomes exponential. The power of systems naturally leads into the importance of durability, an idea central to Thiel's perspective on long-term value creation. A business is only as strong as its ability to endure and remain relevant amid changing markets, rising competitors, and evolving technologies. Thiel argues that endurance must be designed intentionally, not passively awaited. Companies that last think years, often decades, ahead. They invest in infrastructure that seems unnecessarily robust in the short term, but becomes essential as they grow. Apple's focus on controlling its hardware and software ecosystem gave it resilience against trends that might have destabilized less integrated companies. Toyota's commitment to production excellence ensured its reliability reputation for generations. Even nonprofit ventures like the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation operate with long-term horizons, investing in slow but transformative innovations such as malaria vaccines and agricultural technology for developing regions. Longevity requires vision, patience, and structural foresight. This foresight brings clarity to another truth, that meaningful progress unfolds in partnership with the world, not in isolation from it. Innovation interacts with society, regulations, culture, and global systems in complex ways. Thiel highlights that while boldness is essential, understanding the external environment is equally important. Regulators, for instance, can either accelerate progress or slow it dramatically, depending on how innovators engage with them. The rise of fintech in Africa demonstrates that collaboration with regulators can unlock massive economic participation, as seen with Nigeria's digital banking policies or Kenya's regulatory support for M-Pesa. Meanwhile, the struggles of ride-sharing companies in certain regions underscore that ignoring regulatory realities can stall progress. True innovators learn to navigate society's structures, working with them when possible and around them when necessary, always mindful that lasting change requires social legitimacy as much as technological brilliance. From understanding the world, innovators ultimately turn inward to confront the personal qualities required to build something new. Thiel insists that founders must cultivate deep self-awareness, because entrepreneurial success amplifies both strengths and weaknesses. A person who lacks discipline will be overwhelmed by growth. One who lacks emotional resilience will be crushed by setbacks. One who cannot manage relationships will fracture teams. Self-awareness becomes a strategic asset, allowing leaders to delegate wisely, build complementary teams, and avoid blind spots that could sabotage their mission. It is no coincidence that some of the world's most effective leaders, from Satya Nadella to Reed Hastings, are those known for introspection and emotional intelligence. The ability to critically examine one's own beliefs, habits, and motivations strengthens decision-making and anchors entrepreneurs in moments of volatility. This inner clarity deepens into another powerful realization, that creativity thrives in constraints. Thiel frequently points out that constraints can sharpen focus, inspire innovation, and force resourcefulness. Many breakthrough companies began with limited budgets, small teams, and seemingly insurmountable barriers. WhatsApp operated with only 55 employees while serving hundreds of millions of users. Canva's earliest prototypes were built in living rooms because the founders lacked access to professional studios. Even SpaceX, despite its astronomical ambitions, functioned under intense resource constraints during its early launches, which ultimately resulted in engineering efficiencies that competitors could not match. Constraints strip away excess, leaving only the essential, and it is within this essential space that originality flourishes. As companies navigate constraints and begin to scale, they confront the delicate balance between innovation and competition. Thiel argues that competition is not a sign of success, but of mediocrity. Competing head-to-head leads to price wars, shrinking margins, burnout, and diminishing returns. Monopolies, ethical ones built through superior products and visionary innovation, drive progress by generating the profits necessary to invest in long-term development. Google did not advance search technology by competing with dozens of similar companies. It won decisively by being dramatically better. Amazon did not compete in retail by copying Walmart. It created an entirely new infrastructure through logistics and cloud computing. Entrepreneurs who focus on superiority rather than rivalry create space for breakthroughs instead of battles, for invention instead of imitation. This trajectory naturally shifts toward the role of narrative in shaping a company's destiny. Every successful business, tells a compelling story about why it exists, what problem it solves, and how it will transform the world. Thiel stresses that narrative alignment among the team, investors, customers, and the public creates momentum that carries a company through both triumphs and turbulence. The story of Tesla is not merely about electric vehicles, but about accelerating the world's transition to sustainable energy. The story of Apple is not about gadgets, but about empowering human creativity through beautifully designed tools. The story of Zoom is not about video calling, but about connection in a fragmented world. When people believe in a story, they support it, invest in it, and fight for its success. As the narrative strengthens, the final transformation occurs. The company that began as an experiment becomes a force that shapes culture, industry, and even civilization. Thiel argues that breakthrough innovation is one of the most powerful drivers of human advancement. Every major leap in history, from the agricultural revolution to the printing press, from electricity to the internet, was initiated by individuals who refused to accept the world as it was and instead envisioned what it could be. Modern entrepreneurs inherit this legacy, contributing not merely to markets but to the evolution of societies. Whether through increasing access to education, expanding economic opportunity, decarbonizing the planet, improving healthcare, or empowering individual creativity, innovators become architects of the world future generations will inherit. As this long, interconnected journey brings us back to its core message, the ultimate lesson becomes clear. The leap from 0 to 1 is a deeply human act. It is the moment when an idea becomes a reality that never existed before. It is the moment when the world gains something unique, whether a technology, a company, a movement, or a new way of thinking. Progress is not automatic. It is not guaranteed. It is sculpted by the determination, courage, clarity, and imagination of individuals who dare to build. And in a world filled with imitation, noise, and distraction, the rare few who choose to create the new leave a mark that shapes the future long after they are gone. If this message resonated with you, subscribe and join us for more wisdom that fuels growth.